the U2, U3 position after I have removed a lot of hackage. Still doesn't look very good. I sand the area down to bare copper to get a better look at what the damage is. And here I've replaced some of the traces with jumpers. So I've rebuilt a lot of, well, the traces that I think need to be rebuilt. And you can see them here. It's not the prettiest, but boy, there just wasn't that much to work with. And then the cases where...
Pie is ready.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Where a trace wasn't making here, it will be making here. And then on the daughter board, it'll be making through the daughter board. And this is one of Ed's daughter boards I made a long time. I built it up a long time ago, but this inserts into these SIP sockets, and I use SIP sockets also because there's SIP pins here. I'm sorry, machine pins and machine pin sockets, so they mate together well. But this connection is connected here, here to here, etc., etc. I gotta wash the solder flux off that. So the fact that this pin's not connected to anything, but this pin is on, when I plug this daughter card in, it's going to mate this pin and this pin. Very handy. Great idea that Ed had. A close-up of the single gate inverter that I use on my daughter card. So I have repaired all the traces at the U2, U3 position, and I have installed one of System 80B daughter card. This is one of my own making. It's functionally equivalent to the one that Great Plains Electronics made, except instead of using a whole 7404, I've got a single gate inverter on it. I use these data strips, I guess I'll call them, on the 6532s and the 6502s to prevent me from having to count all the time. I hate counting, so you can just tick down D0 through D7, D0 through D7 over here and make sure that you've got continuity across this, what was formerly a hacked U2, U3 socket. I also tested continuity of all the signals from the processor to the TC1 connector, so we should be good to go. Board on the bench now, no ROMs in the board. I'll go test it in my RoboWars next, but I have Ed's venerable, I'll call it, QuickScan 80, which is unfortunately no longer available. And you can see that it is walking through each of the PIAs, or I'm sorry, riots in Gottlieb terminology, RAM IO timer. When it says 4, 5, and 6, it's testing U4, 5, and 6. The 1 is it's testing the 5101 RAM. And the center pair of LEDs that are transitioning between green and red are testing the IRQ signal. Let me reboot and show you how to test, how it tests the reset signal. The lower LED, lower red LED transition to green. That's the way a reset signal works. And this, the QuickScan 80 QS80 is attached to the TC1 connector of this System 80B MPU. That's why it's important for me anyway as a repairman to have this TC1 connector installed. Now the Swemmer MPU comes without TC1 installed, and that's mildly irritating because I have to install a 40-pin socket there. So this test is verifying all of the riots are working correctly, the processor is working correctly, that all the traces are getting through, the 5101 is working correctly. So the next thing to do is take it to the game. I might add, in a subsequent video, you'll see this board doing this test fixture doing a lot more than what it's doing right now. It will also drive the lamps and the solenoids, but that's for another day. we have booted this MPU, and it booted right up inside my RoboWar. And you can see here, this is not too much of a surprise. My driver board is known working, but it is driving all of the lamps perfectly. So let's do some of the other tests that we can do. Skip lamp test. Perfect. Here's where we might run into some trouble. Going across the Gottlieb 8x8 switch matrix, which they number 0 through 7, and it's working perfectly. Dip switches, C2E703CB. C2, what was that? Oh, E7. E7 is correct. 3 is correct. CB is correct. That first one is, oh, it's E2. That makes sense now. E2, E7, 03CB. So all those are working correctly. 1DCA, I believe, is the memory checksum that it will come up with. 1DC8, which is correct. This is a, since this was a board that's designed to take a 2732, as I mentioned about that cut in the center, I double up my RoboWar 2716 ROM, and it works perfectly in 2732s. So this MPU board is now, after a few hours of dehacking, good to go. Thank you so much.
He's a good boy.